Hi, it's Ileana, the Star Traveler, and today I have the beautiful Danette Doby with me, welcome Danette.
Thank you.
And I did some hypnosis sessions with you for memory retrieval for your secret space program things, and also with your extraterrestrial experiences. So can you describe for us what that was like for you working with me?
Oh, very relaxing and enjoyable. I know I first came in with just little fragments of memory, and with having sessions, it just expanded and just opened and blossomed, almost like an onion layer, and it would just keep evolving and opening, and it continues to do so.
Yeah, and I think we did about 10 to 12 sessions together of the hypnosis.
Yes.
And you had memories of meeting your beautiful ET guide, somebody who's very close to you. So I think that's the first thing we explored, right?
Yeah, that was Solar. He's a Randarian species, part aquatic. I remember he was part aquatic, but very much into guiding me and training me, always warning me if, not to go down a certain direction, but always gives me that warm and fuzzy feeling every time his presence is around.
And I felt him too, because I'm also a psychic. So when I do hypnosis sessions, I can feel the being and I can see the being. So he was kind of like bluish gray, and he was very graceful, and he's just so loving and compassionate.
And I remember he's in the Orion system, star system, Aquasis and Mintaka.
Yes.
Planetary systems over there.
Yeah. And this is what we kind of learned from the hypnosis. And he gave you some equations on portals and stuff.
Let's see. I would probably describe him as a very good teacher. I think as early as memories as I've had, he's always been there guiding me and teaching me and really enhancing my abilities, natural abilities and abilities that have also been gifted to me to enhance more of my connection in doing things.
Yeah, so we got to learn about some of the time travel stuff, about what he taught you to work with, some of the discs. We got to see that because you were working with a little boy and you were working with Solar. So you were in different programs. You were in something similar to what Mars Defense Force is, but it's a different branch.
Right. So, and as we've been developing my memories, they were scattered, not so much put together, and the more I go over them, the more that they're interconnecting and piecing together, kind of forming its own timeline system. And I don't know where you want to jump to in all my memories of as a child in the program, developing and with children, and certain one of us that were selected to do certain things. And Solar, I think, was on the side kind of helping out in that form, because as a child he would always come to me and we would go on his spacecraft, and I would have free reign of just walking around his craft he was on, and he would take me through time to describe what time travel was like, what portals were like. And then you were talking about the discs, the time discs. And we would go into a black voided room, and these discs were a golden white illumination. They were, I'd say, about 2 feet in diameter, and they were just stacked, just in a row. And you can take a sliver of time, as I call it. You could just take a sliver of time, and it was very malleable. You can bend it and move it. It was extremely thin, almost paper-like. And I could, on my own, move and distort and look into this time, or depending if we were, I say we because then I'm introducing this little boy, and we could have some up to 20 feet tall, and he would be on one side and I would be on another side. And it was always me and this boy that were assigned together, or I guess assigned or matched up. Our energies, I believe, harmonized and worked more as one, almost like a yin and a yang, or half of one another. And we could manipulate the time and open it up. There is a point where we opened up this disc in Central Park, New York, and we evacuated a lot of people, and we took them off planet for their safety. So that's just one example that we could use with these time discs, other than looking in like a viewing glass.
And we got to explore those memories. I think that's what the first thing we started with. There was the Time Wars experiences. There was the 3-4 letter agencies that you got assigned to, and you got to explore those memories. And you had like agents assigned to you who were your bosses, and they had code names because they wouldn't give you their real names. So not to compromise secrecy and security. I mean, we're not going to get into detail in that because some of that stuff is sensitive, but it was part of it. And we learned that some of these agencies know about the reptilians abducting people, taking them into dumb spaces and other bases underground.
Correct.
On Earth. So that was very interesting. I mean, they know about the crash retrievals as well, of the crafts, because you were involved in that.
Yeah, I don't know how much you want me to talk about, talk about each one of those subjects.
Whatever you feel comfortable with, that's okay for you to talk about, because I know some of that stuff is sensitive, like it's classified.
And then with someone who is coming forward or opening up their abilities, I really think the program should not have erased our memories. I really, just because of what I have unveiled for my own self, I've done a lot of covert missions, a lot of top secret, very time sensitive things, and coming forward with it, you don't know how you're compromising yourself or someone else, and what you should or should not say. If you had your memories, you would already know how to discern what to talk about and what not to talk about. And with Time Wars, sorry, I'm jumping on to Time Wars. Time really doesn't exist. It's just in a snap of a finger, you're wherever. So if you're disclosing something about Time Wars, well, they can just go back to that moment and switch it or wait for me. So, I really think they should have left our memories intact.
Yeah, indeed. And I realize, like, we can't name any of the letter agencies that you were with. We can't talk about that. All we can say is that they're aware that the reptilians, the Greys, have been doing the hybridization programs, have been abducting people to check for their abilities, altering their blood, their genetics. There's bases all over the world that do that, underground dumps and other research facilities. There's also facilities on Mars, because you and I went to Mars, and some of your memories were of creatures being genetically created and modified. In the domed
some
labs.
Escaping.
And some escaping, exactly, and they couldn't contain them. There's so many experiences. That's why we did about 10 hypnosis sessions, And our focus was on memory retrieval, and there was some healing also involved in that, because there were booby traps, energetic traps around these things. That's why you were saying they were erased, or there's blocks that were put on them.
Right. And when we would come across certain highly sensitive topics, an AI would come in who continually still monitors me throughout time. It doesn't, you're in the system forever. And so they are forever connected to you, and they're always monitoring every little thing you're saying and doing. And it will pop in and start giving almost like code references and give warnings. And I remember the one time we were pushing a bit too much, and it was saying terminate, and they were going to terminate me if I continued forward, because then I would have become a threat.
And I told the AI, you cannot terminate a living human being. You must remove yourself and remove yourself from this situation. And I blocked the AI, and you blocked it. And you were taking deep breaths. You took some moments to stop where we were to explore the memory. We stopped, we worked around the AI, we blocked the AI, and we worked through it. And we persevered in these sessions. Some of them were not easy to do, because that thing kept popping in, and you were being transported to a safe space where you
to my white room.
Yes, to your white room, where you have a man who protects you, who's your superior in the secret space program.
Right. And I would have to have a small little briefing and receive permission to move forward within our subject matter. So I always thought that was interesting. One moment we're doing our thing, and boom, next moment I'm in that room.
And I'm with you there, and I'm seeing everything. We're both seeing the same thing. That's why this type of memory hypnosis is good, that if a person is trained in hypnosis, but they're also a psychic, and they've also been in the secret space programs themselves, so they understand what you're experiencing.
Which made me feel safe and comforted, knowing you have those abilities and have that training, that you're right there by my side, knowing where you can take me or not take me, or you can sense when to back off and not. So I always felt, still do, I feel very, very safe working with you, and knowing I can trust you with working with my highly sensitive information.
And I deeply respect everybody's information. Whatever comes up in these sessions, it's private. It's not like it can't be put out in the public unless somebody's willing to speak about it. And again, I know your comfort zone. I don't go where I shouldn't. Like, again, certain topics we can't discuss in detail. We can just say briefly. Some things were discovered that's very interesting. Like, again, to me, it was a little bit like I knew that most agencies know about ETs, but I didn't know the extent that they just ignore what the reptilians do in this world to people.
And some work right along the side of them. They have agreements, and the things that I would come across were extremely disturbing on how far they would go just for information, knowledge, technology.
Yeah, and they use code names, not even you guys, because you were put in these programs on Earth, 3-letter agencies or other programs, you wouldn't know their names because just code names. And some of these code names, when we said the code names, we even saw what the people looked like somewhat. So, and you were saving children. You were doing counterterrorism as well.
Yeah, look, the underground caves I would come across, and they're just children from, I came around, they were about 2 to 13 years old, and just there in this dark cave. And to come across that on a mission, to come across children and see them, and they have that hope, but yet you have to tell them, just hold still while you're continuing on your mission. So if I would have stopped at that point, I couldn't let's say, stop the cycle that was going on. So I had to complete my mission and then go back with an added team and then rescue them.
Yes, because you were tracking pedophiles and you were
Right.
tracking organ harvesters.
Correct.
So, and you have remote viewing abilities and precognition abilities, so you can see like future events, how that looks, and how the scenarios of these events even play out. So that's why you were recruited in these programs on Earth.
Right. My certain abilities to be able to see in and track and pinpoint and know ahead of time, it was very useful.
Yeah, and you were just to find them. You weren't to apprehend them yourselves.
Correct.
These humans, or sometimes even ETs, that go beyond the boundaries of decency.
Right.
So, and the teams would apprehend them. You were just to find them and track them and play out the scenario and how to successfully apprehend them. But the teams come in and physically tag them and apprehend them and remove them.
And, you know, this is on Earth and off planet. So there was other situations where I don't know, it's like an in-between holding station, I would say, when they're first taken. These were adults, when adults were first taken, and they were in being processed. And the beings that were in that space could sense what each person had and would put them through a certain door, and that doorway would take them to different planets. They would not all end up in the same place. So
yeah, and then you had memories of being on ships and working with genetics and actually processing different beings
right,
that had been collected with science vessels. Like you would go to different planets. You were a navigator, you were a supervisor, you would retrieve these beings, you would send out probes and sensors from the SSP ships. You were with Mars Service.
correct.
That's kind of like a military branch, another one that does science and exploration and military stuff too. And it would send you out, and it would send you on exploration missions to collect different types of species of beings for whatever they wanted to study them for.
Or even the uncharted planets that no one has ever been on. A team and I would go down there, scope it out, and if we would come across anything, then we would collect them. Or we would also do security guarding for scientists. So we would secure a location, a perimeter, bring down some scientists, and then keep a safety bubble around them while they did what they needed to do. But yeah, that was an interesting thing. You saw a lot of different planets and weird and strange things.
Yeah, you guys collected artifacts, you collected live beings that were put in stasis pods and crated in special cargo to be taken off Mars and off the ships to be transported to Sandia Labs on Earth.
And there's also, within time traveling, we went back into prehistoric time and retrieved like a saber-toothed tiger and brought it back for scientists to study its DNA and other features, because they were trying to extract the DNA to use it upon us soldiers or to create another type of creature. So that was very surprising to fall into that and see those images, and yeah, quite amazing.
Yeah, you saw so many different creatures, and you saw different ships being retrofitted, new ships created, like the Tomahawks.
Sure. Yes.
They go beyond the speed of light, and you were like working with these crews, managing these crews to make sure that the maintenance was done on the ships. You were doing the ship rosters. You were organizing, like you were a supervisor for Mars Special Forces.
And I remember on Mars seeing how the ships came into the planet for their docking, and then inside the big, I mean, it's enormous of how big these ships and then the holding area, the ports are. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they can go beyond the speed of light. So they have different warp drives than FTL engines even.
Right, and I remember we had gone through almost an evolution of different power mechanisms each one of these ships had gone through, from kind of a rudimentary to more advanced, and that was interesting. Didn't quite know that I could retrieve that information, so it was very surprising. I mean, most of my memories were just of time wars or fighting other species. So to unravel other areas and depths of the extent of what I've done.
Yeah, and you exactly, and you remember even going on a planet where there was large creatures that you came in with your team, they attacked you, and you had like cannon weapons and smart suits.
Right, and kind of like a pulse rifle. I would just call it a pulse rifle. I don't quite know the name, but it would just emit this blasting wave, and it could just obliterate anything in its path. And then these coiled plasma weapons that were fitted onto vehicles and ships when we're on certain terrain and being attacked and having to give orders for the mechanics to fix it and to hurry it up, and barking out orders to them. And I can understand why I have the personality I do in my Earth life, you know, because I've pretty much been in a leadership role and barking orders to other people. So I kind of got to know more of myself, you know.
Yeah, and you have the ability to teleport yourself off the ships without needing to be on a teleporting beam.
And I noticed some people needed devices to do that, and I learned that it was just myself. I can just create it, and I think that helped a lot in the time wars as well, because we just used my abilities and all of my senses, knowing what we were going to get into, and knowing how much time we had.
Mm-hmm. I remember what was very special is that you were attacked by some beings on one of the planets, and it almost killed you, and then you found yourself in a healing pod.
Is that the being on that one planet and just a swarm of these creatures just coming through and attacking them with everything that we have. And with that, you have no fear. You're just in the moment. You're not questioning anything. You're just, and you stay very, very calm, and you just fight until you cannot fight anymore. There's yeah, and I remember that thing jumping on me and just impaling me, and that was all I remembered after that. But yeah.
And what did the thing look like? You said it was muscular and big and just...
The ones that we were fighting, they look very similar to the creatures in Venom, the movie Venom. They were on four, they had like four hands, you know, feet and hands, and running, but they were that black slippery kind, and the eyes just blended in with their skull and the teeth. And I remember the planet was very barren. It had like lava crevices and very dark, like very dusky, but that was because of a planet light source was very, very far. So this planet was very dark. And there was only a couple of us, about 5 of us, that went in. And the one creature that ended up impaling me looked similar to a tarantula wasp. If somebody looked up what a tarantula wasp looks like and what it does, that's what got me. Jumped on my back and impaled me. And I've noticed that majority of the creatures and insects that are here on Earth are on other planets, just very, very big. You know, maximize their size. And so it's not strange for us to talk about certain things that we've come across, like the planet with the mice, the white mouse colony. They were highly intelligent. To me, they were like hippies, and they were very, very peaceful. And they're one of our allies, and they had called us for protection. And so my team and I went in there and protected them from an enemy coming in that wanted to destroy them, because they were a peaceful race. They didn't have weapons. They didn't, you know, they lived in harmony. And so they called us in to be the muscle and protect them.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes peaceful races call in their allies, and they weren't the only one. We've seen other memories that you have where your teams were called in, and sometimes it was too late and the beings had been wiped out by hybridized predatory creatures that are just dropped on the planet to annihilate everything.
Chills when you talk about it.
Yeah, to annihilate everything. And some of these creatures are made by the secret space programs, planetary corporations on Mars. They have labs that create these creatures, and on other planets. So we saw that it's not just the ETs who can hybridize these creatures.
Right. There are experiments that have gone wrong, or they put them on other planets for us to try to then tame them or control them, and it doesn't quite go as planned.
Yeah, our own off-world civilizations, secret space program teams or programs or units.
Testing planets.
Testing planets, yes, there's many testing planets where they just create something like dinosaurs. Yeah, or these tarantula wasp creatures. They're not all organic to the planets, and they're predatory.
Correct. Like being on one planet and coming across a beetle, you know, which was enormous. It was the size of like a skyscraper. It was enormous. Which was very similar to the things that we see here on Earth. So maybe it is our own scientists that grab what's here and take it out there and see what happens with them and how they survive in certain environments.
I wouldn't be surprised, because the creatures on Mars, like there's rats on Mars.
And I also know why in this life here, I cannot stand ants. I mean, when I see an ant, I just want to kill them. I have zero compassion for ants. And that's from SSP experiences dealing with them on a much larger scale. And they are not fun to mess with.
Yeah, and that's what we discovered, that the Mars bases and colonies are protected by electromagnetic fielded domes.
Right.
To keep all these creatures out from coming inside where all the humans are and the SSP personnel.
Right.
Because we actually saw the perimeters of these domes and how the electrical fields work on Mars.
Right, and then there's the security tower. It almost looks like an airport tower. And so you have the view of everything with all the security, and you're interconnected. We had surface dwellings, I remember that also went down within the planet. But mostly everything was below level. And then we had found the one covert cloaked military base there on Mars that I have some very interesting work I do on that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
we can't really describe
talk
everything.
about that one.
Yeah, we can't really discuss too much, but you did security and you saw a lot of secret labs where they experimented on different beings. You saw like a white being, tall white being.
And there's, let's see, there was genetic testing. We also had, well, our med beds, you know, we had those versions. I remember seeing that. And then we had the holding area where there was the variety of all the different species being either captured or experiments and holding them. And I remember describing it as a domed snowflake, because there's a central point with then the branches off, and each one of those sections were controlled by different levels of science, I would say, and then you met up in the middle.
Mm-hmm. There's the biology, the chemistry, the genetics, the mutations, and studying the beings themselves, taking skin samples, taking body parts. And some of that was transported off of Mars on the Tomahawks or other ships like them, and you were to mask the cargo so it would pass.
That's right. I had the ability of making people see what they wanted to see and feel what they wanted to feel. So you can just slip on by and not notice anything. Like I was their best friend and they've always seen me, even though it might have been the very first time. Or make them not see something and put a different image in their mind.
Yeah, and the cargo was off limits to normal people on the vessels. The maintenance crew couldn't go in certain cargo decks, cargo bays, because there were beings in stasis that were
That's right.
packed and ready to go to Sandia Labs, Los Alamos, underground bases for study on Earth. And you were in communication with some folks from these labs.
Right, and whatever they wanted, they got. And they would pretty much almost give you a shopping list. And also with deep exploration, if you give them the feedback of other things that exist that no one else had known about, well, then they wanted something. So yeah, you had that.
And you can procure it. You could procure it. You were sent out on these special missions, retrieval missions, to get that stuff and send it down to them. And then they dissected the beings sometimes. They kept them in stasis. They studied them to modify human beings with those abilities of those beings and genetics here on Earth.
And there was also some that they wanted to study because they were either an enemy and they wanted to learn how we could protect ourselves or weaponize against them. And then there were some that we retrieved that they shared some energy powers, objects, artifacts that could supply certain energy, or you can weaponize it. And that was a very coveted artifact. And I remember them sending me in to retrieve it. And that's a hush, need to know, and people still, it's like an off book kind of thing.
And most of it is.
Which, you know, we also found out that I was in a lot of lead investigations to a lot of the covert operations.
Yeah, you were loaned out to many different agencies, some on planet Earth, some off-world, and you were to investigate where the funds were going, where the artifacts were going, what was being done, who was corrupt and who wasn't, and who was to, you know, to be removed, who were counter spies, enemies. So there was a lot of that, and that was surprising. That was extra. We found information on that.
I'm finding star charts of where certain things were and what it was for. And And I remember also coming across a nebula system and what that nebula system held. And I remember an alien race wanting that information. So they were taking me from this life here for that information to extract my memories for it, and they couldn't get it. I noticed certain instances when I'm taken that there's something that the SSP has gifted us, or me, I know I'm aware of, that I have like a protection mechanism that will trigger if I'm in imminent danger. And it just automatically will like go on. And a lot of times that's saved me in certain circumstances here.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're still a target here.
Oh, of course. Yeah, we're all being monitored just because we've been released from the SSP. Sometimes we're still active, sometimes we're not. They're always monitoring us through cell phones,
Right.
through technology, through AI. We always have to be careful what we say and what we do and who we interact with, who we can trust or not.
Yeah, like I remember one day out of blue, just like if I'm sitting here and talking to you, then the next moment I know I'm being taken somewhere else. And then they're saying, okay, we're going to reactivate you. And this is what you're going to be doing now. So you're always in it. And another thing with it is I've done so many tours. I don't know if you want to call them tours or, but they overlap, they stack upon each other. And a lot of it bleeds through into this life. And I never really say this is actually my true life, because this life feels foreign to me because I've spent most of my life out there doing other things. This life feels foreign to me and kind of lost and forgotten. I mean, but yeah.
And you've seen the future. You've been on space stations. The SSP has these specific space stations that exist in the future and now. And you saw like multi-deck space stations and craft coming in and going. We both saw that.
And there's in the future, there's a timeline where there's a lot of technology, but it's very much run by the AI. And we all have implants. And this flat, I have a flat on a skyscraper, and this AI can biometrically read me as soon as I walk through that door, know my mood, know what's going on, knows my schedule for the day or whatever, and it will set the lighting, it will set the temperature, it will run a bath for me if it senses I feel like I'm going to have a bath. But also it will, in my closet, it'll pull out what outfit I will wear for that evening. It already knows what I'm going to wear. And then we have flying vehicles, because then I had a vehicle come right up to my flat, because there's a whole side that's windows, opens up, there's a decking there, and it just flies right up to your flat, and you get on and off you go. And televisions were like 3D illumination on your wall. But it was very, it was a big city, and it was interesting, because then you have the conflict of this life right here talking about AI and its control and, you know, the futuristic things where you kind of cautionary. And I've had both sides of that. So it's hard to say where you want to go with AI.
Well, I had Neurolink implants, 4 energetic implants that connected to my neurons, my axons, it was a whole neuronal web that was powered by an energetic core, and it allowed me to telepathically speak to other people who had those implants, to connect with the computers on the Mars bases, to connect with scanning people, seeing what's inside their bodies. So, and being able to record these memories of what I see and hear, like everything I see.
Right. And I was part of the project with the visors that scanned soldiers' memories of their field ops.
Mm-hmm.
And then the chair that they sat in as well. Because we always say, oh, it would be nice to have our memories projected out on the wall or for everyone to see. Well, they have it.
Yeah, they do. And they also have memory engram stations in the cybernetics labs on the Mars bases that do similar things. But that was, you were in a different project. You were designing that technology, checking the quality control of it, like taking the soldiers
and testing it out. Right?
Yeah, taking the soldiers through their paces and testing it on them. That was a whole other different project, and it's called a different name. We can't say the name of the project, but we have little bits and pieces that we can share. And going from the city, right, going off world, going to a space station, you had a supervisor on the space station that you would meet.
Yeah, I had a commander that I would meet up with who would give me my orders for the missions, and then I would relay it to my team. And there's one space station that we were on, and even though you have your time off, you don't have your time off. And you're always in waiting stasis because at any moment you can be called out. But in my team, we always wore black. And these were, I don't know if you quite call them jumpsuits. They were more like spandex type outfits. But there were other people that would have white or gray. And to me, that signified what category you're in there. And there's also, I call it like a way station. There's one that's almost like an airport out there. And from any jump gate or planets, you can just go there and cross and go on different crafts and go like a big bus station or an airport. And that was amazing to remember that. And
yeah, and I saw it right along with you. And some of these uniforms, they had an insignia with wings to signify which group of the SSP you worked with.
Right.
Or for.
Yeah, a lot of my group, everybody just stayed away because they kind of knew what we were about.
And often you have to be tough in these programs. And people ask, well, you're a civilian, you're not military. How can you be in these programs? Because you're selected because of your gifts, what you can do.
Right, and how much you can tolerate. Because you can't, let's see, they couldn't break me out there, but they could find me here in this world, and they knew how to break me here. So I've been healing from that trauma of what they try to do here. And that's when I was saying earlier, you kind of feel abandoned out here. It's like you're in the program. Where's the protection to protect me here? You know, because there's still abductions, there's still other things going on, and you're protected out there. Why can't we still remain protected here then?
Yeah, because you recently told me that agents you had gone to a conference and agents had approached you, and then you were taken.
Yes, yeah. I was taken in one, and I woke up in the middle of a procedure they were doing to me. Another evening, I had family all at the same time contact me because they were all feeling danger. And then, yeah, the agents, I could sense them and feel them. I knew ahead of time, so that was solar warning me. And then sure enough, right before me, it all unfolded exactly as I was told would happen.
So we're not really protected by these programs when we're on Earth. We're not doing our missions. We're just living our human lives and trying to survive and thrive the best we can with what we've been left with. And sometimes we're traumatized emotionally. We have physical issues, not just one, but several. And it really impacts on the physical and the emotional level.
Because even in this life, you know, poof, I'm taken up for some kind of a briefing, and then poof, come back down. And that's this life. And, you know, I have abilities in this life that I use, more enhanced out there, but I mean, I could still move things with my hands or have precognitive information. And I mean,
And you would often,
it's all here.
yeah, you would often text me and call me and say things. I know that this is going to happen. And so Lart, when he would also say that to us telepathically, and it would happen.
Right.
And these weren't coincidences. And our sessions were even timed around where there were internet outages at your place.
Right.
You would just say, you know, I know there's going to be an interruption of some sort. It's
Mhm.
not going to work out today. It's like, I'm not going to have stable internet, and then you wouldn't. So
Right.
there would be like little interferences.
Oh, this session that we were pre-planning, I was coming across all kinds of challenges, and I was navigating around them to the most optimal outcome so we could successfully do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was very, very challenging.
And these were interferences, not like normal ones. It was to block, because they would know what we would be exploring in this session, because I would send you like 14 questions
Right.
that you were to approve or add something to them
Right.
to explore in each hypnosis session, because we did 10 to 12 sessions. So we were doing sometimes 3-hour sessions. We were just so tired. We were just going beyond hunger and tiredness. We were just soldiering through, because the information just kept coming in so fast. And you have,
and then even afterwards, it still comes out, and
yeah,
you know, adding to it.
You have one of the most interesting memories and experiences that for a person that I've worked with, because you have so much rich information, not just one experience. There's so many.
So many, yeah.
Yeah. And can you talk about a bit about the submarine and time traveling, what you did to get the submarine?
Okay. Should I say the year and when?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. It was in 1950, and I was on a spacecraft which gave orders of an imminent threat for humanity and for Earth. And this was a nuclear bomb that was going to be deployed in destruction. And this is part of the Time Wars, because we already know what's going to happen. So you go back in time to correct the situation, and you already know the time, place, everything. So I used my abilities, opened up a portal. It was a team of 5 of us, and we dressed in the time period then as soldiers. And this was a Russian submarine. It was docked off, but to me, I kept feeling German. So I think Germany had the Russian submarine, and we boarded onto the submarine. I remember encountering an individual there, which we had to neutralize, and then go down to where the bomb was, defuse it. But also, through more of our sessions, I remembered that we actually portaled it out of the end, just completely made it disappear. And then we went right back out and into our portal, back on the ship. Now, where that bomb went, I didn't need to know, and I didn't need to remember. My mission was just to go there, neutralize it, save humanity, save the planet, and save the ripple effect that would happen through time. So it's time correction. And we're not the only country that does this. And a few months back, there's a certain country that was hunting us. And I had awareness here about it, that they knew what we were doing, and they would go back. They would try to either undo it or stop us. And that's a pretty scary thing to know that.
Yeah. And can you talk a little about the crash retrievals of the UFOs?
There's one in particular that it had crash landed in a wooded area, and I have a special team. I always have a team that we have certain abilities, and what we had done is gone into that area, surrounded the craft, and we were able to emanate using our abilities that it was cloaked and invisible. And I remember a gentleman that was coming by, and we can go within that person's mind and make them not see us or not see that, and then give them an impulse to, oh, I want to go out to dinner or something, go in a whole different direction. And while we were controlling the site, a portal opened up, and we have a big, huge craft out in space that I always said this was kind of corny, but used like a tractor beam, you know, secured it and pulled it out. And it ended up being an alien species that was one of our allies that had crashed. And we were there to retrieve them and to protect them. And I say it's corny on certain things because, you know, you see sci-fi movies and things like that, but there's a lot of disclosure in sci-fi movies. So when we talk about certain things, yes, there are those things that do exist, and we can do those things. And then once the craft was taken, the portal closed, and then we just dispersed.
And was this on Earth that this happened?
This was on Earth. Yeah, two instances happened like that here on Earth that I remember going to and retrieving it like that. Other things with UFO crashes was to secure information, gathering the information. I remember going into 1947 and retrieving UFO information, and from an individual that was investigating it and was about to release it. And I was given orders from a very high-ranking individual to retrieve that because of my abilities. And I just remember opening up a little tiny portal, sticking my hand in there, grabbing the information and closing it up. And I laugh about that because you know how we set things down within our house and it's not there anymore? And we're like, I know I put it there. Well, this was one of those instances, you know. They had the file right there. I just opened up a portal, grabbed it, closed it up, and they turned around and it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah, and you gave the information to your superiors.
I was in one of those, I guess I could call it like a dark control room when I do certain things. It's just like a dark void that I'm in, and then I can work. And I remember another team who was even more covert than I was, that I passed on the information to them, and they had the energy just like I guess people approach my team. It's like, okay, you don't talk to them and you don't approach them. You just, okay, they're there. Oh, I didn't see them, you know? So I passed on the information and did not need to know where it went. Just know that they were securing it. I retrieved, they secured.
Exactly. And there was also the instance where there was these vault systems under the Trade Center towers in New York that had sensitive information about off-world activities, the SSP, the slave trade, the weapons trade, everything, that all the dirt, all the programs that was in the vaults. There was like these cybernetic vaults and physical vaults.
Correct.
And that was destroyed. That's what 9/11 was.
Right. And I was part of the investigation for that.
Yeah, because it was taken down with a satellite type energy beam weapon. It wasn't planes crashing into the Twin Towers.
Right.
It was an energy beam weapon that destabilized the towers, so that's a surface level distraction on the surface to destroy what's underneath.
And that's also a great example of mind control, where on a mass scale, you can place images into someone else's mind to make them believe wholeheartedly that they saw a certain thing, which didn't really happen.
Yeah, and there was a lot of sensitive material in those vaults and that information repository, physical things like papers and on servers.
Correct.
That got, some of it was destroyed, some of it was moved to other servers in Antarctica and satellite systems. But you were investigating what got moved, what got destroyed, what was taken.
Correct. And it feels very sensitive to talk about, but there was, it goes very, very deep, and it's gone, it extends out quite further than what normal people are aware of.
And that's where we found some of these star charts where people were being transported, where things were being transported. And we were trying to, it was hard to make sense of the charts because they're coded in certain frequencies and ways to confuse us.
Right.
And it was not easy to figure out where the things were going, where the duplicity is. But that was all covered up, so none of this would be exposed, that these programs are still covert. They're still covert. They're still secret and classified.
Correct. I know. I'm just like, how much do I say?
Whatever you feel comfortable with, I think that's all we can say about the vault stuff, because it's classified things that were removed from those vaults that would have, if those vaults were found, they would have exposed all this corruption, everything.
Right, and then the ripple effect of what that would impact. Yeah.
It would have compromised a lot of agents who are doing investigations and who are looking for the corrupt beings, the corrupt people that work for these programs. So it would have compromised a lot of people. There are so many moving parts in that project. And also China almost unleashed an energy beam like a pulse on.
And I'm getting so triggered when you're talking about it.
On California, yeah, you were involved in stopping that.
Yeah.
Just imagine if a pulse beam were to take out the half of California, the electrical grid.
Right, and money,
yeah, exactly. It was a timeline war thing.
Yeah,
that was stopped, that you stopped. You helped to stop it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things also, knowing that you're involved in that, and then you have the recollection of this life, the earth life, of what you were doing at that time as well. And I just remember saying certain things to people that didn't make sense to me at that time, but then I just had internal knowledge of what was going on. And then as we find more disclosure happening, more things are unveiling itself.
Yeah, and this was about almost 2 years ago that we did this, and we weren't ready to talk about it then.
Right.
Because this was all happening.
Right.
See, the timeline stuff that was happening then, so we couldn't really even talk about that, even though 9/11 happened years and years ago. This information couldn't come out 2 years ago.
Right, because there's still people deep in it.
Yeah, and we can't go into much detail. We can sort of say this is what we discovered in these hypnosis sessions. Then we did 10 to 12. There was again 14 questions for each session. Right. And sometimes we would go 3.5 hours without eating or drinking anything.
Right. And see, talking about it, I have I don't know if you can see it yourself, but there's an energy that's coming in that's really, and how the camera started flickering. So yeah,
It's
that it's a sensitive subject.
very sensitive, and there was a lot of emotion that went on. You weren't ready to come forward and disclose openly or publicly. It was hard to speak about these things because you were processing the memories. And there were so many bits and pieces. Like, we did scripts, we did session scripts, not just the video. We recorded all the hypnosis on video,
Right.
but we also did scripts. So when you're ready, you can put it in a timeline.
Correct.
In an organized way of what happened when, where did it start?
I remember as a kid here in the Earth Life, you know, having all of those abilities, precognitive, feeling, moving things around, seeing beings, interdimensionals. I mean, that's a lot of things that were going on as a kid, kind of flooding through of what I was doing. But I remember predicting things that would happen in the future. And then in this life, when coming up to those events within that time, I started recognizing, like, wow, I had said that when I was a kid, and seeing it all evolving. And then the things that I do still see in the future. Now, the things that are happening in the future, well, they can be changed within the timeline. So not necessarily does that mean that these certain events are still going to occur. But the one event in the future where I called the Mad Max version of it, and that was a lot of the time war, water wars. And then we see here in California what's happening with our water. They're just draining out all of our water. Our water is gone. So that concerned me, going, oh no, I don't want us to follow that timeline path. So I'm really hoping on the other side out there that we're going to correct it. But because if not, everybody needs to prepare for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's been flooding happening where I am in some parts of Western Canada, and it's weather modification. It's not normal, because one day it's super hot, the next it's super cold, and it's going from one extreme to the other, and it's like, it's not normal, and it's not it's not environmental changes that we're attributing to or contributing to. It's not really climate change. These programs, there's satellites that can modify weather, that can modify energy. Like, we saw that in your sessions. So they can
I remember telling people about weather wars before it even became a known word. I'm like, well, that's weather wars. That's modification going on. People are controlling that. And then now they're seeing it, and more and more and more. And I'm like, that's not natural. People are so conditioned to not have awareness of what's going on around them. So for us to come forward and to say something, to bring awareness, it can open and expand viewpoints.
Yeah,
and then they can look for it themselves.
Yeah, because these satellites, they can change energy, they can change matter. So on a huge scale, they can target any country and change the weather. And then they can cause earthquakes, they can cause tidal waves, they can do anything they want in modification.
Right. And then, I don't know if we want to talk about, I don't know how much you want to talk about the things that happen in the future, or possible versions that could happen in the future.
Anything you feel free to share that's comfortable for you, you can do that. This is a safe space to do this in.
Like the prevention of World War III, World
Sure.
War IV, and the fake alien invasions, 2 of them. You know, there's like the world wars, you know, you kind of can see the United States, Canada, and Australia, predominantly what's happening in Australia. And that's pretty much, they're almost like a prison country because they're all isolated. So whatever's being tested out there, they want to see how successful it is so they can expand it out to all of us. And it's for domination, you know, but one invasion that I'd like to bring up, so we're not the only ones out there, out in space. There's other countries that have their own programs just like us. There's one instance where it will rain down ships. It will look like a complete alien invasion to where the sky is just full of ships, like they're all raining down. There's also a version where there's a solar flare, and behind that solar flare, behind the sun, is a whole fleet of ships just waiting. You can't see them because they're behind the sun, and with the solar flare, they're behind the solar flare, and then they come in. Yeah, and there's a lot of things that are happening to our planet as well. There's a lot of things that people need to change their energy on, get more harmonized with their own self, not being materialistic, because there are dimensional shifts where humanity, you kind of call that like an evolution, or you're evolving into a higher space. So the world will change drastically. There's one that's more destructive, and then there's one that goes into more of a harmonic state. That's going on right now.
Mm-hmm. And you've averted temporal wars from starting or happening.
Very much so. And there's a lot that are collapsing down. I remember about a year ago, I had an awareness that something that was corrected was then manipulated, and we had a split line going on. And then I felt it collapsing and going off into a different direction. And me, I'm just hoping it's the positive one.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always changing. Like I said, there's time wars. It's a time war. We're not the only ones, and we're not the only beings out there that can manipulate time and dimensions, interdimensions. I mean,
yeah, and we saw a lot of that happening in your memories. There's like a whole catalog. There's like a book that can be written from your experiences.
very much so. That's why I'm like, oh, how deep do you want me to go? We're just skimming the top. I mean, I have a book that's about that big, just skimming the top of just a handful of memories.
Yeah, we have about 600 pages that came out from the scripts of the written hypnosis scripts that were transcribed from the video and audio.
Right.
And when you and I looked at that, you're like, that's going to take me a while to sort through this and figure out my timeline. And
Right.
I said, take all the space that you need, take the time that you need, because this is stuff that happened to you. It's real. It's not just some simulation that you were in. You lived this stuff. You went through it. You experienced it.
And I'm still living and experiencing it. And I'm still getting the bleed through of what's going on. And also having multiple services, they're all bleeding through. Just because you've done one doesn't mean that that's it. They just keep stacking up, and then they're all overlaying, and it just comes trickling right down.
And what I noticed interesting is that your personality always stayed the same. You didn't have multiple personalities. You didn't have different personalities coming in. You were always you, and I was always me too. So we didn't have this thing where we had alters.
No.
You were always you. You were always in command of your faculties. You
Correct.
were you. You didn't look that different from yourself in your memories. That's the
Correct.
thing. Some people have alters. They've claimed to have alters in the SSP, but not all people do. Some are very much focused in one personality. They're driven. You were driven. You were always successful on your missions. You met your quotas.
Yes, except for that one. And we had found out, okay, so when I would go on certain missions, they would inject me. And I've noticed that I have markings here on my neck and here on my neck. I would have injections before I would go on certain time missions. And in this one, it did not work. So when I went on that mission, I was kind of like how we are here on Earth. You're questioning things, your judgment, you're judging what's going on and the morals and ethics of what's going on. And I disobeyed orders, and I did instinctively what I normally would have done, and it botched the mission. I was getting in trouble for it until the investigation had found out that the inoculation that was given didn't work. And so I was thankfully cleared of any malintent, and we were able to go back into that time and then correct what had happened, what we were there for.
So it's like emotions are suppressed and controlled with these inoculations.
You do not question your orders. You are fearless. You pretty much are void of emotion, so you can do your mission. And the things that you face, in a way, it's a blessing, because it can haunt you and torment you if you had all of those emotions.
Mm-hmm.
You could just like turn them off, which was very nice. The bad thing is if someone's pleading for their life in front of you, you don't have the emotion to, you're not connected to what's going on, and you will play out your orders.
Mm-hmm.
You do not falter from your orders. So you become a superb super soldier.
And you worked for Mars Special Services. That's a military branch of the SSP.
Correctly. I was always military. I was always in some type of security or save the day kind of missions, which coincides my personality that I have here. I naturally go into leadership roles. You know, I'm about the earth and humanity. I'm empathic, so I feel very deeply. So, you know, my environment has to be very, very comforting to me for me to function correctly.
Yeah, I can corroborate that, because we worked on balancing your energy. We worked on strengthening your energy and understanding why it is the way it is and what needed to be done to help strengthen your abilities to shield you from things.
And that's one of the things that I was very, very strong in my abilities and in my energy, and it matched pretty much what I was having in the program out there. And that's when traumatic things started happening, and it broke all of that down. And so building it back up, and I wonder if that's one of those safety mechanisms that they have. I'm upset about it. I'm upset about it, but I am thankful that it's all coming back. All the balancing, all the healing is quickly coming back again.
Well, it takes courage to do this. It takes courage to step up, to explore who you are, who you've been, and who you are in the future as well, not just currently now. And I can I can corroborate for you the Neurolink implants that I had, they could shut off emotion completely and not feel emotion. So you had to do tough things that when your emotion is on, you wouldn't do to complete jobs, to create cyborgs in the cybernetics labs, because you're working with human bodies. You're transferring souls from one body into another, into an augmented cyborg or a clone.
Right.
So to do
I
that,
have that here in this life though too, and I think that has to do with the training that I had in the program as a child, because my earliest memories was in a facility with about 20 children, and it reduced it about to 12 after a while. But in there, it was like a military academy, military training. We were specifically trained for certain things, and they already knew what our abilities were. And so from such a young age, they were training and enhancing all of our abilities. But I remember being a child there, you had no emotions. You didn't question your authority. You weren't laughing and giggling like little kids and running around. You did what you were ordered, and you did it. And I remember having a physical PT that was going on. And if you were exhausted, you better shut that exhaustion off in your mind and keep going. There was no being tired, no exhaustion. You just kept on going and going until you were ordered to stop. So I think that training as a child, and that's here in this life. I wasn't taken off planet for that training. That was me in this life having that training. And so I think that's also has molded who I am in this life.
well, you're a survivor. You have strength and courage. You've persevered. A couple of years ago, you would not have been able to talk about this because it was all experiencing emotion, and it was so much to sort through. You had to give yourself the time to heal, to process all of this stuff, and start putting into slots of what is this?
Right.
Where does it come from? Why did I do this? Who was I in these programs on Earth and off world and in space? It's like so many experiences. It's almost like living 100 years in a condensed version of seeing this in 12 hypnosis sessions.
Right.
And then
because each one was a lifetime.
Yeah, exactly.
Each one was bits and pieces of it.
Yeah, and then having a body of work from 600 something pages. When we did the count, you're like, oh my goodness, this is so much to go through.
And that's just skimming the top.
Yeah.
Of just a handful of memories. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, we almost did this for half a year together. We had sessions on a regular basis every week or every 2 weeks.
Right.
And we had discussions afterwards too, just trying to understand how it all fit. So there weren't gaps. And even after sessions, we just spent discussing things. Things would come after the session too, while just talking together.
Right. And that's how I seem to be able to get it out, is by having discussions. Because just now memories are just flying in, even us talking, and can illuminate more on certain things that we are touching upon. Just like I just have to say it, the training as a child, there was 8 of us that were selected, and we are specifically selected to certain tasks in our life, and at any moment we can get called in. And there was a mission that was off world, and the 8 of us were all called in. We all portaled in from wherever we were in our lives and in time, portaled in and did our mission. And we were all veterans, but we all were trained at the same time and at the same facility as a child. And there was no verbal communication it was just a telepathic acknowledgement, and we jumped in, did what we had to do, and jumped right back out. And it is still that way.
Mm-hmm.
We can just get called at any moment to go.
Yeah, because it's time portal technology. It's quantum leap time dilation. So you could do a 60 and back, a 20, a 30, a 40, or a 100 and
I
more.
was going to say there's 100. Yeah.
There is. Yeah, there is. And you're just dialed back into the frequency of your body, into a current timeline.
Yep.
And they match up the timelines so that you can exist on Earth again.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the advanced technology to do this to us, and they do it to us.
Yeah, there was about a year ago, there was an instance where I had a time distortion going on with me. I didn't know what year I was in. I thought it was 1 year, and I was maybe 10 years off. It took me a while to readjust to what actual time period I was in at the moment. And that right there told me, oh, I just went somewhere. You know, I just did a few things because I had certain time dates in my mind. So I must have went to all of those and then came back. But that's just a blip in your life, you know? And in this, we get used to it.
Yes,
you know,
we do.
Especially as frequently as I'm taken, I just like, oh, you know, kind of laugh it off. Oh, went somewhere during my sleep. I'm working in my sleep.
Yeah, and they can transfer not just our body somewhere, they can transfer our consciousness and our soul existence out of the body and place us in different bodies.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Cyborgs, clones, avatar bodies of different ETs. So you can, one day you look like you, but then you're in another body that's totally muscular, tall, slim, a different female body with different skin color.
You know, I know. I miss, well, it's just the healing process of the trauma that I had in this one, but I had all of those. There's a certain energy that comes with being a soldier, and you're very, very strong in it. And I noticed another thing, that in my life, I kept being guided to do certain things in my life and go in certain directions. Like, I love kickboxing. You know, I did that for years. And I think that has to do with the SSP part of it. It's just that physical. I'm not one that can do yoga. You know, kickboxing is my method, but I remember being on the Farragut, and one of my exercises was doing kickboxing. So, you know, that's a bleed over, or that's just part of who I am. Having medical knowledge, having, you know, I'd always been interested in memory retrieval. Always helping, and always wanting to help people, have them touch to their core selves, freely enhance their own selves, and not be relying upon another person, to have their own self mastery. Yeah, I think that's just a bleed over.
And you had one job where you would jump off of tall buildings and cliffs, and you had the ability to really go high.
Yeah.
And you told me when
I
you
can go cliff diving, jump off bridges. Yeah. Skydive, just absolutely fearless. Just growing up, there was no fear. I didn't have fear really of anything. And I know a lot of people just check that off of, oh, you're young, you know, children are kind of fearless, but I had always had that.
And you were a master chief who specialized in jumping off of things on Mars, and just
And training troops.
And training troops, like diving and just going and going and going in tough terrain on Mars.
Right.
With that training. And
the holographic simulations that were so real.
Mm-hmm.
So real. Yeah, it's amazing on what you can do with holographs.
Yes, because we saw your training sessions and they were tough, and the simulators, holographic simulators, where you would train your crew, the young cadets that came in. They thought it was easy. You showed them it wasn't that easy.
No.
And they would come by batches, and they would be trained and then sent out on the ships or super soldiers reconnaissance fighting missions. Right. And you decided what their abilities were best suited for. Ground teams, sky teams, crew teams, off planet, on planet.
As soon as they would come, I knew exactly where their strengths and weaknesses were, what their abilities were. And I remember this one team that would come in, and I instantly targeted 2 individuals, and I made them like team captains, because I knew they had what it took. Out of 10 cadets, those were the 2 that had it. And I put them in charge and enhanced their abilities to become the team leader. You know, so when they went somewhere else, you know, they can lead and teach the others.
Well, that's why you were the Master Chief.
That's right.
In Special Mars Services, because again, you knew what these personnel coming in through, with these, whether they could be soldiers, navigators, psychic assistants. That's what a Master Chief looks at. A person assesses them, what their job that they're good for. Like, you look at them, you psychically scan them, and you know what job field to assign to them. That's military.
Right.
It's making decisions on the fly. That's assigning the correct roles to the correct teammates so that they work well as teams.
Right. I remember, I'm getting flashes as you're talking of, so this is an alien being. I'm very close with his father, and he is a blue being, you know, no hair, is bald and very bright blue. And the father wanted to put him under my wing to watch over him, but he came in as a translator. And I remember giving him the reference of rubbing some mud on it and to cover his blue skins, because if we went out on missions, he would just glow out there and be a target. And he did not understand what mud was, what was mud, because it's an earth reference. And I mean, I just laugh at it every single time I remember that, just the look on his face. But that kid stuck by my side and hung on every single guidance I had to give him to be a superb interpreter. With alien knowledges. See, telepathically, I can communicate with other beings, but with his specific training was to interpret for one of our humans with other beings at other conferences. So it worked. It was very successful, but it was a good memory to have.
And we were looking at that in the hypnosis session. Mm-hmm. That's why I was like, I'm scanning psychically through the catalog of everything that we covered to see what the interesting experiences are. And in just an hour and a half, we covered almost 10 different experiences.
Right.
Because there's so much and there's much more. Right. So this is what the hypnosis allows to do, or memory retrieval, because I'm developing a memory retrieval course, which is on the similar principles as the hypnosis sessions that we did. Some similar guidance, similar topics of how to access your memories. And I think you're able to access your memories organically without doing hypnosis now, because we've gone through the trigger points of how to access those memories. You have the working knowledge of how to do it for yourself, and you've done it for yourself. You're not the same person from 2 years ago.
No.
you were having a hard time accessing your memories. There was always a block. Now you don't. You're a confident speaker. You're a totally different person.
Thank you. Well, you helped me out. Thank you so much.
But you've also put in the hard work for yourself. It's not just me helping you. You're doing the work on yourself. You're willing to do the work on yourself. And that's also important. When you recover memories and you start putting things into place and feeling confident with this information, then you feel more confident to access more. Once you understand the mechanisms and the processes, you feel more safer, more confident, and more courageous to keep going if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm willing to go out there and
you
share what I have.
And it took 2 years to get here, but giving you the safe space and time to do that, that's also important. It's not just retrieving memories and making it fit and understanding it. It's also feeling safe and comfortable with it and working through the trauma, because sometimes it's very emotionally painful and physically painful. So you have to work through that and heal that too.
Mm-hmm.
And you just went on and on and on and on. Our sessions, sometimes you were in pain, emotional, physical pain. She just kept going and going with me. And I kept pushing and pushing you to go beyond your comfort zone, beyond your comfort levels, because I knew how strong you are.
And I have a mission to get it out.
Exactly. Well, that you wanted that mission. You asked, you signed up for the mission to work with me,
right,
to organize all of your things in order, because you lost a lot of your own memory stuff from when your computer crashed.
Oh man, that was, yeah, I didn't like that.
you had voice recordings.
It was all gone.
You would talk to certain people that you trusted, and you would talk these memories out, and it was recorded, and it was all gone.
Right.
And but what's lost is never really lost. It was always in your memories. The same stuff was in your memories, what we retrieved for you, with you, because you did the work. You are a strong telepath. You are a strong remote viewer. In your own hypnosis sessions, you were remote viewing automatically. So you did the work too. It wasn't just me guiding you and like using my abilities to look deeper at things. You looked at your own things. You did the work with me. We're equals in this.
Appreciate that.
You are strong. You're a survivor. You have skills. You have abilities. And without you, I wouldn't have this foundation either, because working with you really taught me that people have multiple experiences, and all of this is important from start to finish. It's so important to understand, to work through it, to have patience and delve and play with it, and not to be afraid to examine things that are hard to look at.
Right.
So,
I'm very free of speaking about it. And yeah.
You've had the time. You've had the time to process everything and work on yourself. So that's the key here. Because again, what we were doing 2 years ago, you and I weren't ready to step forward like this and discuss this, because this is now what we've already done and what we can talk about freely and openly. Before, we couldn't really discuss what we were working on. And often in hypnosis, when you're actively working on memory retrieval, you cannot openly and publicly discuss these memories because you're still working on them to understand what they are, how they fit into things in reality and beyond. So it's a process. It's a work in progress and work in process. And sometimes it's time sensitive, where you have to work through it and understand it. And years later, you can speak about it. Not when you just finished the memory retrieval.
Right.
So, and I think eventually you'll do public speaking, because you're great. You're organized. You're not blocked anymore. You can openly access your memories, and you speak with confidence. So
I know what I've done. I've known the type of person I was, and I know the type of person I am. And yeah, I I don't worry about anybody doubting what I have to say because I know it's factual.
Oh, it very much is factual because there's
Right.
certain things you touched on that have been in other people's hypnosis sessions too, on similar categories and similar things. Like I can't speak what's in hypnosis sessions of others,
Right.
but the information is eerily similar. And it's also similar to my information too, of
Right.
some of my experiences. So we've both had inoculations or implants where our emotions were suppressed to do the work that we had to do. We've seen domed bases in cities on Mars. Those are two facts that you and I share because they're similar to us, to our experiences. So, and you reached out to me. I didn't go looking for you. You reached out to me.
Right. And I could feel and sense and already know that you were the person to work with.
And it has to feel right too when you work with a practitioner or when you do courses. It just has to feel right. If it doesn't feel right, then look for something else, to somebody or something to work with. I always say you always find something that resonates with you on the soul level, to somebody to work with. You and I resonate. That's why we work well. And you have to feel safe. Number one is safety.
Correct.
And feeling comfortable in a safe environment. And sometimes there were even people around us when we were doing sessions together. Somebody would come into the room and we would stop for a few minutes and just let the person pass by. You try to have a quiet, safe space when you're doing memory retrieval, but sometimes people interrupt and come in. We all have homes, we all have families, we all have distractions. Sometimes a memory retrieval might be interrupted, and you stop, you take a few minutes, you recalibrate, reconcentrate, and you can go back into your session.
Sometimes what I liked in our sessions is you're just sometimes just naturally guided to go in a certain direction, and there's a pocket of information.
Yeah, and you can switch topics, you can switch questions. You get a bit of, we got a bit on everything, a bit of this, a bit of that. It's like we had a shopping list and we shopped around, and sometimes we would change direction in mid-flight of looking at something.
Right.
And then we would come back to it later, and that's fine too. I mean, I wasn't worried about taking notes on any of this because this was being recorded, video and audio.
Right.
And then later we did the transcripts. So it's like, when you don't have to focus on manual writing, of writing down somebody's experiences, you're free to explore with them their memories.
Right. And I liked when I heard the word Talladega. I was on a ship, Talladega, and you had asked me a question, and I just had a huge emotional downpour. And we explored, well, what was that emotional connection then to that ship, that mission, or it still even today gives me a very strong emotional, overwhelming feel.
And because sometimes we have loved ones who served with us, or people that we know in this earth life that served with us. We remember faces, we remember names, we remember relationships. So because we could have been stationed together.
Right.
We can't talk about the personal things that was on that ship, but there were emotional connections to people there.
Right.
So
I know I was on with the Tomahawk, Talladega, and the Farragut. And each one was a different service, different missions, different people, because you're spending lifetimes with them. And I think here on Earth, we're gravitating to one another and filling in our missing puzzle pieces, I think, or just have depending on the deepness of our connection out there, then we're reconnecting here. And we can just sense it.
Yeah.
And it could be very, very overwhelming and powerful.
Well, I know I didn't serve with you, but the energy, you are an SSP asset. You're a soldier. I could feel your energy. It's nothing that you can just create. It's just something that's there in the soul record. That's there. That's who you are. we tapped into that to explore it and figure out, what did you do in these missions? And they're long. Oftentimes it's not a short mission, it's a long period of a mission.
Right.
There's detail, there's planning, there's precision involved. So, and oftentimes you can't even speak about it.
And I can in our sessions, which it makes it very helpful that I don't have to bottle it in, that in our sessions we can talk freely and really dive into everything that's coming up. But publicly, we know, okay, well, we won't talk about that.
And discretion is really important. If people are doing hypnosis sessions with somebody, make sure your discretion is assured, that it's private, that it's safe, and it goes nowhere. That's how this works. It's privacy and safety, number one. And these are memory retrieval courses. So this isn't hypnosis. This is where you'll be working with the recorded material that teaches you the techniques of memory retrieval. And you can record, you can listen to the recording and have another recorder on standby turned on to record what you're saying as you go through the techniques and the prompts of accessing the memories. Because what I've created is something that me and Danette have worked with as the hypnosis script. So it's a modified version of that for people's memory retrieval course. But I wanted to share your experiences because you were the first one that I worked in such in-depth with. Mm-hmm. You have so much interesting material. You could write a book with it.
I intend to.
There you go. That's beautiful. I'm proud of you, Danette. I want you to write a book about your experiences because it allows you to share with other people what's out there, what's beyond this 3D world.
There's a lot.
There's so much exciting, interesting things, and you're an interesting person. So I think these sessions allowed you to have more information to do whatever you want with it. Because it's yours. It's yours. And what people retrieve, the memories in this course, it's theirs to do with whatever they want. Right. I say be careful in the beginning. Like if you want to be a speaker and come forward with your memories, just look at the memories, what's time sensitive, what's classified. Share what you feel you can share and don't share what you don't feel comfortable sharing.
Right.
Because there's different types of people. There's people who judge, there's people who are open-minded and welcoming of our experiences, and some that don't want to know. So when we share openly of ourselves, of who we are, sometimes we feel judged and hurt because there's people out there who will criticize us. Mm-hmm. And so just love yourself, be gentle with yourself. Allow this to be a treat for you in exploring your memories, because you're doing this for you, not for somebody else. It's for you to feel like you don't have any more blanks and spaces of erased memories.
It was like having amnesia, and I'm finally remembering myself and to feel whole and complete once again. And it's a wonderful feeling to have. But those are my experiences.
Mm-hmm. And learning how to remove those blanks and those booby traps and those triggers, because I think you and I both learned how to remove those things.
Right. When to push and when to back off. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and when to totally take down that energetic wall.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When to dismantle it piece by piece and remove it from your brain and your soul, because it does not belong there. That booby trap, that trigger, is specifically placed there to block you from accessing memory and experiences and events. So we worked, sometimes in these sessions you were crying, you were shaking, you were experiencing physical pain and emotion, and we would stop, we would talk you down from it, take deep breathing, get you to drink water, move around, and then come back. Right. And continue on. And sometimes we would stop because at some point you have to stop if it feels too much.
Yeah. Or I think mostly what we did was just went on to the next subject, and just having that disconnecting from what we were in and moving on really helped.
But a few times we did stop because it was too much, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You could always stop a session and continue onwards you can come back to things. And we did come back a few times where we stopped, and that was fine too, because 3 hours had already passed.
And it was like that.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say to people, go at your own pace, what you're comfortable with, because we are all unique beings. We're all unique. We can go at different paces. You and I did sessions at 12 or 1 or 2. I'm not an early morning person. I don't know if you are or not.
I vary.
Yeah, but I'm not a morning person. So for me, my ability works the best from 12 p.m. noon and onwards. So we were scheduling these sessions because I start work at 12. So we scheduled them when I was alert and awake.
At your peak level.
At my peak level. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is, again, people's working styles differ. Right. Some are morning people, some are afternoon people, and some are night people. So you can do these memory retrieval techniques whenever you feel comfortable, because it's a recorded course. And I think people getting to know your experiences and how we work together just helps them to get some comfort in knowing, what the heck is this?
It's to me, it's fun and adventurous, and each session opens up and explores something even new. And when something new comes in, that's even more awesome to experience, and more exciting. You just want to keep going.
Yeah, definitely. And it took me 7 years. I did self-hypnosis. I learned this all on my own. I was taught past life regression techniques, and I blended it with hybridized hypnosis. My teacher only taught me a bit of hypnosis. This took 7 years to come to this point, to be able to work with individuals on this deeper level.
And I'm grateful.
Me too.
Thank you.
And I'm grateful for my teachers too, my past teachers. And it took me 7 years. So don't worry if it takes you time to figure all this out, because time is often what we need to build upon experiences, because memories come, layers of memories come. You and I had layers of things that came up, and we were just oftentimes taking even a breath and sorting it out, like trying to figure out the timeline, the exact year, the exact date, the exact day itself, whether it was night or day.
It could be a little challenging, especially when there's multiple layers on top of one another, and it all feels like it's all happening at once. So, yeah.
We were often looking at your clothing, what time period it was, and who was there around you. Did it feel like it was the past, your present, or your future, or somewhere near future? Like, what timeline is this in? Because so many timelines, we were jumping timelines.
Yeah, and one would trigger another one, and then we would explore that, and then it just kept unraveling and going as we're kept tapping each one.
Yeah, and we explored anything that came in. Sometimes things would come beyond the questions that we were asking, and we would explore everything and anything because it felt important.
Right.
We didn't put limits on anything that we wanted to look at and see deeper. We would just dive in and go as we felt safe to do so, and we would look at the safety parameters.
Right, and some things were had its own natural timing of surfacing. So when we would start with one thing, it could be sessions later, then more would come from it, but it just had a natural evolution with information that would unfold.
Yeah, and you would say, well, these are just, I'm feeling like these are little bits and pieces. Where's the rest of it? And I said, this is the rest of it, because this is big information.
Right.
It seems like bits and pieces, but they fit into the bigger whole of all the sessions, because like you said, some things would come back later.
Right. And at the time, it might seem insignificant, and it's very important to mention it. Don't just, push it to the side or not mention anything, because those are like little highlights, little bullet points in your life, in your memory, that will later become something. And then you're like, oh wow, I'm so glad I had mentioned it, or I didn't hold back from not saying anything.
Yeah, because again, these are your sessions to explore whatever you feel comfortable in doing and exploring and learning about. With you, it was a learning experience. I felt the most connected to you out of everybody else I worked with, because I saw you on a weekly basis. I worked with you. I feel we're friends, we're soul sisters.
Right. I feel the same way. Yeah. There's just a deep connection, and and working together, it's a bonding. It's a bonding, really.
And I couldn't imagine anybody else to ask to do this interview with, because you're special to me. Your experiences are special to me. It resonates with my heart, and I've had similar experiences in the SSP. There's truth, there's vibrancy in you. You speak your truth. You're not afraid.
No, I'm willing to get it out there. Yeah.
And I appreciate that. And I thank you so much for being here today with me and sharing this information with me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm enjoying this.
Me too. Is there anything that you would give advice to anybody who's wanting to do memory retrieval?
Oh, don't be afraid to explore it. Be gentle. Don't have any frustration toward it. Whatever surfaces at that moment, just allow it and let it be. And just know more will come later. Because I remember when I had first started, I was wanting all the answers up front, and it just wasn't happening. But as time evolved, it just unfolded and unfolded, and now it's there now. And to have patience. Patience is the key.
And I was so interested in your memories. I would be working on lists of questions, and I wouldn't tell you what the questions were, but I was working on them while you were working through that. I wish I had everything now. It's like, but I could almost psychically see all the questions in your head, and I kept writing things down and just made notes. And you would find, like, I would send you I would like literally send you 5 revisions to the same thing. With more like adding more detail to the questions, and just like going, well, maybe we should look at this as well, and just kept adding on more questions, making it more challenging.
And I was just open wherever we were going to go. I was just open. I didn't mind.
You're very flexible to work with, which I loved. And you would send me your own questions and additions that you wanted added in. So we worked as a very cohesive team. And back and forth communication was happening, and we would talk too. So that's important. Key communication and understanding. We didn't put limits on exploring any of this.
Oh, none at all. Yeah.
And we would check in. I would ask you, is this okay to look at? Is this okay? And you would check with me too. It's like, is it okay if we add in this, and this, and making your own suggestions, which I appreciated. That's what a hypnosis practitioner does. So I recognized a kindred spirit in you.
Thank you.
But you knew all the best questions to ask. And in the hypnosis sessions, oftentimes you would add in questions to explore. Something was totally off script, which is great. Spontaneous questions are great too.
Right. There's, I remember sometimes you would ask me a question, and I was just like, no, we're going to go this way first. And then we would backtrack around, but it made sense at that time. And because certain questions will trigger certain memories. So you just naturally flow there and then talk about it and work it through, and then it opens up a whole nother category. But I noticed within myself, if I ignored it, it wouldn't come back. So communicating that with you, and you're just so open, like, yeah, let's go that way.
Yeah, and there's certain things I wouldn't let you ignore. I would just come
Right.
back and repeat the question. After we explored something that was similar or even different, I would come back with the original question, and I would just like even ask it 3 times.
And at that time, then I was able to access it. Because I remember sometimes in asking a question, there was those blocks. And I wasn't quite able to access it yet. But if we kind of worked on something else, it had opened it up, and then we can explore it. And then I could have the vibrancy of information. And then I remember when I was talking, it was Solar. Solar had mentioned a certain device that was used for taking our big ships into traveling and warping time and all that. And you would ask me a question, I could answer it, and then I would say, please ask me another question. It's like I couldn't open up those next steps until you could say, okay, what happened next? And then that joint communication opened up the whole spectrum.
And yeah, and there was keywords, Solar, these ships being taken through time portals with this warping time travel device. It's like keywords, ship, Solar, time travel. What is this device? What does it do? What's the warping capability? What's the warp time? What's the portal? And even the portal was so intricate. I kept asking you keywords. Because sometimes you would say something that didn't make sense to you and me. And we were just like, what is this word? What is this word? What is this word? What does it mean? We would ask these questions for the meaning of the wording and the vocabulary.
Right.
Because
you have just opens up even more.
Yeah, because you have your unique set of vocabulary that came through your hypnosis, and I have mine that came through my hypnosis memory retrieval. We all have, like, there's so much technology that you worked with and know about, and Solar showed you. So, and that's what those equations were for that time travel device.
Correct. And then I remember when we had very, very first started, I was having the difficulty of articulating the information on trying to describe it. I could picture it and visualize it, but I didn't know quite how to put it into words. And that has evolved currently to where I can now describe it. I can describe what things look like, and all the senses that go with it. So that's helped out tremendously.
I think your brain received healing and retraining.
Yeah.
About accessing deep memories of consciousness and how to actually keep that. Whatever you access, keep the memories. I think we've recaptured, reworked that ability, that mechanism in healing the brain, because that's what was blocked.
Right.
With the physical pain, the trauma.
And the hypnotherapy has definitely helped me once again in this life with my abilities and sensing things and having that guidance. So like you said, it's retraining, reopening, reaccessing once again. And I'm feeling more myself again. Because it's like I've always had it, and then for a brief time it got taken away, and now it's back again.
But it was never taken away. It was just suppressed by what was happening in life and circumstances too, because
those bullies.
Well, and personal things that were happening in your life, that there was a person who was stopping you from doing certain things and bringing your energy down vibrationally. And we were working on that to get you out of that situation too.
Right. And it's worked.
Yeah, there was stuff involved where you were emotionally bullied and just energetically being taken down.
Right.
That was not a good living situation, being in that. We're not going to discuss the details because that's private, but that was part of the equation as well.
Right.
And you're out of that now. You're not with that person. So you have rights and freedoms that were being controlled. You were
Right.
being controlled. Certain things were taken away from you. Now that you're out of that equation, you're on your own. You're your whole self again. There's nobody to pull your puppet strings, literally.
Right. And with my sensitivity and awareness, you really, to have been in the program, you live a different life than everybody else. And especially if you want to be open and communicate, it takes certain people to be in your circle for that. And so I'm very grateful for you to be in my circle for that.
I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful that we removed the other person from your circle who just didn't belong vibrationally there anymore. Right. They helped you on your soul growth because they helped you with the memories too. They listened, they kept an open mind. Mm-hmm. So they were there for the life lessons that needed to be there, but they don't need to be there for forever in your life. You're free.
People come into our lives for certain purposes and to help each other in whichever way. And
yes, but now you're free to experience a different life partner, a different vibrancy in life, and a new sense of freedom. Right. And to just continue to grow in the soul evolution of who you want to be. And that's not being controlled every step of the way. You don't have to hide in another room anymore from yourself, from being free in your home, in your sacred space, where you're not feeling that other controlling person's energy controlling you and verbally controlling you as well. So taking yourself out of that unsafe space allowed you to be the strong person that you are. You were always strong, even when in that situation. Now you're much stronger because you're standing on your own 2 feet and you're saying, that was not okay, what was happening to me.
Right.
It was making me sick partially too. Not just the SSP stuff and the AT stuff, but physical life stuff.
Right.
You were strong enough to, well, you knew when you came in, you already knew that you didn't want that forever. And we worked through changing that perspective too.
Right. And working with remembering who I was also changes that, because you have a whole different mindset and perception on things as well.
Oh yeah.
It's just not this, remember who you were out there, and holy smokes.
Yeah, and freedom of expression, freedom to express yourself however you want, whenever you want, and not having a time limit on being yourself, where you can only be yourself for like 5-7 hours, and then the rest of the time when you're home, somebody else is also in your space that you don't really want to be in your space too. Right. That was sort of hindering the memories too, in the comfort zone and level.
Right. That's why my environment has to be it has to be harmonic to me, and because of my sensitivity and my abilities. So it's I learned that. I didn't quite understand it before, but I know it now. So.
Yeah, and oftentimes, like when I do all my memory retrieval stuff, I shut myself off in a private, quiet space that's my healing office. I don't do it in my bedroom. I don't do it in my living room where anybody just can come in and hear my session.
Right.
Because if you're just doing self-hypnosis, you're talking, you're listening to the technique, guided meditation or memory retrieval technique, whatever it is you're working with, you want the safe space. You want to have the safe, sacred space where you're alone and it's quiet and you're just tranquil. And we worked on releasing the active thoughts and the distractions for the mind. That's what we would start with.
Right.
Always clearing the mind of all active thoughts and whatever was there that was the clutter we would work on releasing that. We spent like 10-15 minutes just doing that.
And then as you're talking, I mean, this almost goes off subject though, but I'm trying not to.
Oh, it's okay.
We had, I was being abducted, I remember at the very beginning there, by some dark entities that were taking my blood.
Mm-hmm.
And you had recognized that they had been doing that for about 5 years. And I remember, and I drew the pattern that they had placed into my solar system. My solar system.
Well, it actually looks like a solar system.
Well, I remember you had done a drawing also because you had seen it.
Yeah, I did something similar and it looked like I think it's also coded for something. There's code.
Yeah, well, these were the pinholes that they kept puncturing in to keep extracting the blood. And you were telling me that they were changing my DNA every time they were doing that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also interfering. And you were able to help me block them from abducting me again and from continuing to do harm to me.
And I almost saw
and the markings went away.
Good. I almost saw like black matter in your blood. That
Right.
They left like a residual thing behind. And that's what because we did a psychic reading on this first, and we did a healing session, and we did remote viewing on some of the subject matter that you had of your SSP memories, like the bits and pieces that got erased. You had some notes on that. So we did remote viewing. And then when we discovered that there's more to what you thought there was, we started the hypnosis sessions.
Right. And like you said, there's just so much that I can share and unravel. And yeah, definitely. And then you've helped me along with the hypnosis and giving me the guidance of what I could do for myself, to my own self-hypnosis. I still have some blocks on writing and recording and doing things for myself, but I'm working on it.
Oh, you can do it. I know. Look how far you've come. You had blocks just talking about accessing memories, which you don't have. So just with the writing, look at what we already looked at, like what we explored in those scripts, written scripts. And just when you read it, just like tap into what's beyond that writing to add in more. And that's your timeline, because you can add anything. Just take a copy of the script and name it something different, start reading it and start adding notes of just whatever comes in instantly for you.
Okay. And that coincides with what you were talking about, having your quiet, safe space when working on your stuff. And that's really important, because if you have interruptions or other people, it's hard to go into that zone and to get that information.
Yeah, because we had the person you were with come in and they were grabbing something from the fridge, or
constantly.
The cat. Yes, yeah, or the cat would, or the dog would go meow, 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 or bark, and you know what? We stopped. We let those things, those distractions pass us by. We took a few breaths, went and took a little water drink, bathroom break, and water break is very important, or even food, to grab some food. And you would come back and we would recenter, refocus, and go back to that space of clearing the mind of all active thought, clearing distractions. We would just safely go back into the session and slide in where we left off.
I was just going to say, we just went right back in where we left off. It was effortless.
Well, because we had worked together, so we knew the nuances of how we work together. We build a connection, a rapport, a working team. So once you have that with somebody, you kind of know the comfort zone of where you can go together.
Right, exactly.
Feel safe taking breaks, and you say, I need to go to the bathroom, I'll be back. And you would go, or I need a drink of water, and I would go, because my voice would drop too. When you talk for like 3 hours in a session, sometimes the voice goes and you need a little water.
Right.
So folks take that into account, because if you need a drink of water, just stop your session, go do it, go to the bathroom. Like, don't deny your human needs.
Right. It's there was a word I was just about to use and it just went poof. It's a comfort level.
Comfort level, yeah.
Yeah. It's don't deny yourself. Just these sessions are for the person to unravel, and especially if you have to go to the bathroom, don't have that distract you. Don't have that be a distraction, because then it takes away from the session. So allow yourself that little moment.
Yeah. When there's a 2 or 3 hour session of hypnosis and you're like, you've gone over the edge already, that bathroom break and that water break is so important. And it's like 2-3 minutes. It's not like you're just taking, well,
you're not gone for a half hour.
no, you let the person know, I need to go to the bathroom, or I need to put my cat out, or, you know, there's somebody coming to grab something from the fridge. You let me know, and you know, I'm just like, patience is important here.
Very much so. Yeah.
And sometimes people will come in suddenly, or the phone will ring or something will happen. And that's okay. Sometimes that happens. That's life.
I almost think it's an energy thing. You know, certain energy just all of a sudden brings in certain distractions, and you just have to work with it.
Yeah, and we can refocus, and we refocused, and we continued on. So we learned to work around things and through things. Right. And nothing stopped us. There was internet connection things. There was people distracting us, animals. We just went around that and we did our work.
Right.
Because it was beautiful work. It was so exciting and vibrant. I feel a connection with you.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. You're on my mind a lot, and I can't wait to talk with you.
Same.
It's like, this is what I found out.
and listening without judgment and being open-minded is so important. Let the person talk. Let them speak out the scenario that's happening and what they're experiencing, a memory, experience, an event. Let them talk it out. Don't interrupt. Never interrupt.
Right. Because sometimes we go off somewhere else.
Well, and I learned to be quiet, because I'm used to talking and asking questions, but I learned to be quiet and let you just form verbally what you were seeing in the experience, to verbally talk it out. Because you needed to say it. It had to, like, you could see it and I can see it, but it needed to be verbalized, because hypnosis is about verbalization.
Right.
Memory retrieval is about verbalizing what you're seeing from your memories. So sometimes always let the person talk it out. And like, if you are experiencing so much, just continue to talk it out. Even
I was about to say, because there's certain points in the hypnosis where we're just trying to take it all in, and don't be silent during that time. Just say whatever, just keep talking. So then, like, you who's receiving that information can understand, okay, we're looking at all of this and trying to make sense of it. So just keep talking. No silence.
Well, my thing was to be silent. Your thing was to keep talking.
Yeah.
And we learned how that worked by working together as we got to know each other.
Right.
Because in the beginning, I would do a lot of talking, I noticed, and you would do a lot of listening. Then I would stop talking and you would do a lot of talking and I would listen. Because that's how it started at first, because we were building rapport and trust and understanding how we both work. And then I was keeping quiet. I would just ask the question, keep quiet, and let you talk. And sometimes I would interject to ask something for clarification, but you would talk. So it did evolve over time.
Yeah, because at the beginning, it was just trying to understand, well, what was it that I was seeing? It didn't make sense at the time. It makes sense now, but to I mean, I remember just trying to digest it and I didn't know how to describe it. And then you started asking me questions and I'm like, okay, well, I'm seeing this, this, and this. This is what's going on. And sometimes you would have already knowledge then of what it was I was looking at. Because there could have been a point where I didn't know the name of what this thing was or what it could do, but you did. And then just having that missing piece filled in, just, it just felt so good to put it whole.
And the only reason why I would know something, the name of something, because I've had SSP experiences of my own that are similar. They're not the same as yours, but they're similar. So I understand the technology. I understand the concept. Sometimes I knew the name of the thing even, because I was also like you, an SSP experiencer and an asset. Like attracts like, and like works with like. Like-minded people understand each other who've had similar life experiences. Because if you're working with somebody that never has experienced what you've experienced on a similar level base, they don't always understand what you're saying or talking about.
Right.
So,
and I had a comfort level, even if something sounded ridiculous, I feel comfortable enough to talk about it. And for instance, I was in a med bed. It was opened and I'm talking to the medical technician and like nothing was ever happening. Yet I had this hole punctured through me and I'm seeing nanites reconnecting tissue, healing me. And at the time when that was going on, it almost felt like, oh, that's not how med beds are supposed to be. That's not how it is. But that was my experience and it was accurate. Not necessarily do you just have to be, knocked out, you're in a med bed. It was just a preconceived idea that I had of what a med bed was like before I saw my own experience in it. And so coming forward and talking about that helped that,
Well, some med beds are open, some are closed.
Yeah, this was open. Yeah, I remember.
There's so many different versions of med beds as well, or holographic medical pods or healing pods, and they have weird names too. And I was just like hovering while you're exploring that memory. I'm like hovering there, thinking fascinating. Show me more. And I was psychically like, show me more, show me this. I was so excited to be seeing your memories because I could literally see everything with you. Like, fascinating, show me more. That was always on my mind. And it's like plethora of treasures.
And the thing is, you think if you go into a hospital, you're changed into like a medical gown or something. I was fresh off of a field mission and got severely wounded. I was still wearing my smart suit. I was still wearing everything when I was inside of it, but it didn't matter. And I thought that was unusual.
Well, they're about like, we need to save their life, just put them in whatever they come in. And the nanites can heal through anything, through any clothing, through anything, because it goes to your skin, it goes into your blood, and it goes everywhere else in the body. They're beyond microscopic, they're nanotechnology. So they get infused, they go in the heal.
Piece meat back together.
But
I remember at the time I wasn't in pain. I was just like any other day having a conversation with somebody. And they were just there on the little keypad putting in stuff as I was talking to them. And it didn't take very long for the healing at all.
And the healing pod has like plasma technology and holographic technology attached to it, and sometimes crystalline technology. So you're not just lying on it, it's healing you, and the nanites are healing you. So it's doing double duty.
Yeah. It was just an amazing experience though.
And I'm glad that I got to see it with you, because I'm like, tell me more. This is a treasure trove. Like, you've had some of the most beautiful experiences that I've ever seen. And I'm fascinated. This is I was almost like drooling sometimes, like how exciting it was. And I tried not to show the fan girl experience that I was having right along with you.
Right.
It's like, this is a treasure trove. I want more. I was like, I want to see more of this. So I'm sorry, sometimes it was like a fangirl.
No, it's fine because it was joyful for me to retrieve those memories and have them and to share them. And also knowing that, you were in the SSP and had your own experiences, it also gave me that extreme level of comfort and camaraderie that I could share these things with you and you could understand.
Well, there's nothing that's ridiculous. There's nothing that's strange to me. People say, well, this might sound too ridiculous, what I have a memory of, or this is too weird or too strange. I'm like, there's nothing ever that's too ridiculous, too strange, or too weird. If it's part of your memory and experience, it's just there for you to work with and experience, because it's part of you. So you're not weird, you're not strange, you're not crazy, you're going through your experiences. And it's important to acknowledge that this is normal. For somebody else, what's not normal for us is very normal.
In our realm, it's normal.
Exactly, because we dial into our life experiences and memories. To us, this is like everyday functionality. This is how it works.
Yeah.
And
I remember at the time I was just concerned that I put my own judgment on my memories that were coming in. So my advice also would be, don't do that. Just be open and let whatever information flow and don't hold anything back.
I agree. It's like, explore what you want to explore, what you wish to explore, what you need to explore. And sometimes there's a burning desire to know answers to something, because your reality is the way it is and you need to understand. So allow yourself to get the answers to that.
Right.
Yeah, that's something I would say to folks. And allow yourself to be you. You are unique. You're going to process these memories in your own time frame, whatever feels comfortable and good. We did half a year of this work.
There's so much more.
yes, definitely. But you have a foundation to work from. And I always encourage you. It's like, you asked me, maybe we should book another session and do another hypnosis. And I said, well, why don't you work on yourself, work with your memories, and tap into the subconsciousness and see what you get. Just see what comes forward. And I know you can do it.
And here I am now.
And here you are now, and you're gonna have fun with it. You're gonna explore it, because you have already so much that we got from these sessions. It's amazing.
All right. Is there anything else you want to ask me that you want me to talk about?
Whatever you feel free to talk about. I think I've asked everything that kept coming to mind is so important.
I have fragments of things of commanding large ships, or flying my own little vessels, transport vessels, out in space, going through, I don't quite want to call it a wormhole, because it's almost like a portal. And there's some that are almost invisible. They just look like a ripple out in space, and you can go through it and boom, you're somewhere else.
A time bridge.
A time bridge? All right. Because I'm just like, you just go through it and boom, you're just somewhere else.
It's almost like a wormhole, but it's like, it's an energy time bridge. Like,
like I said, I didn't want to call it a wormhole, and it wasn't quite a portal. It's just, you're just instantly there, almost like a portal when you're going through a portal, but yet you're going so deep into space. I mean, you're going a very, very long distance. And I wasn't then arrived in near another planet.
And this feels like it's energetic, but yet it's a technology and it's been there for thousands of years in space. So it doesn't feel new. This is old. This is
Right.
beyond SSP, and it was built by somebody else. And it's
And
built
it's
on
there.
yes, there. It's built on frequencies. It's a frequency technology. So it's not like a natural thing. It was created energetically. And it just, see, this is how we work together. This is an example of that. Because you tell me something and then I tap and I probe and I get more from it. And then we would banter back and forth like this.
But there's nothing floating out in space that is marking it.
Mm-mm.
You know, like you would see like a freeway sign or anything like that around it. It's just, I think having abilities, you can see it and you're aware of it, because you can see that distortion out in space and then go through it. Now, automatically knowing where you're going to end up, I don't know, I just knew that if I went through there, I would end up completely somewhere else at a different planet that I wanted to go to.
And you were pre-plotting your navigation coordinates with this ability. That's why they had you as a navigator working for Special Mars Forces as well, because one of the jobs was navigator, one of the jobs was Master Chief. Right. So you had so many job titles that were different.
Yeah, and I'm still like, what one do I identify with? I identify with all of them. I've had so many. I know certain people, they go by one, and me, I'm like, well, here's my laundry list. here's all my titles. It's just all of my deployments, you know, everything I was in charge with. I mean, I do remember the one time being called up and being reactivated. It was like I was in retirement mode. They brought me back in and met up with an old friend who I had served the entire time with, and just said, hey, would you be interested in doing that? And that's what I'm doing right now. And that's training the troops and, you know, getting them all ready. And it was one of those that, having such experience, they wanted me to share it. Oh, and then that reminds me of that interrogation. And that's part of on Mars, training the troops. See, I had this memory and I didn't quite understand what was going on. I thought that I was being taken and interrogated. But as more time has surfaced, I know it was a training session. And because I excelled in my abilities for this particular subject of interrogation, it was to teach the troops, the new troops that had come in, and they wanted to see a real live interrogation, and they did not hold back on me. They put me through the ringer. And each interrogator was a different alien, different species. There was one human that had very heightened abilities, and each one would take their turn to their full extent of trying to access me and break me down to give information or give my free will over to them so they could have access to me. And it went on for a very long time, until finally my body just gave out. But I held on, and I remember that other high-ranking individuals were observing as well. And I remember at the time of having this experience here, I got very, very upset and very hostile, but as the information has processed and evolved, and now I can understand the situation, I'm like, oh, well, I volunteered for it. It was an educational experience.
Yeah, and I'm like, when I was looking at that memory with you, it said it's nothing personal. It's just training. It's just brutal training not to give out our secrets. It's like, I'm like, gee, well, thanks for that.
Right. And the way it felt on being interrogated, because it was such an invasion into your space. But this is also what triggered the SSP within you has certain abilities that will activate it. It's your energy that's activating that will protect you. And they're trying to break down that wall. And to me, the closest I could relate to it is if you were captured and getting waterboarded. That's what that interrogation felt like. And it was just grueling. But yeah, I made it through, but man.
And it was repetitive. It was more than once.
Yeah. And it just kept going and going. And that's to break you. So you would give up certain information, top secret information. And it depends on your energy and your will and your abilities to hold on.
Exactly. And you were also spent hours and weeks studying different extraterrestrials before you would go out on missions.
Yeah, they would pop up in a hologram, and you can turn them around and see them at all angles. And me, when these holograms would come, I could feel and psychically sense them, not just visually see them, but I could tap into that species. And a lot of them were the hostile races we were dealing with, and just some were pretty scary if you would come across them, because they have no regard for the human race at all, and you're like an ant they'll just squish.
And studying them ahead of time before actually encountering them and meeting them was to help you to avoid them or avoid capture, or just be on top of the situation so they wouldn't be on top of you in any way.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it was part of the, like, policing the galaxy, the universe out there and other planets. And this is also one of those things where when we go across a planet that none of us have ever been on, and I'm the first one on it to explore it, if we come across any hostile race, well, now we can share that information with everybody else. And luckily we can repair ourselves.
Yeah, and your encounters of these new aliens or extraterrestrials, they would be added to the training databases of the holographic ETs. What would you encounter with these folks?
Right. And the holographic rooms, they were like a black room with lit up grids. And being in this room right now would look exactly as if I was in the holographic room. You could not tell the difference unless if all of a sudden your abilities can kind of sense like something was off, and then the illusion would go away. But then they would throw it right back in.
Yeah, and the beings were so real. The holograms, right down to their
smoke, the smoke.
Yeah, all down
explosion,
to their
vibration.
Exactly, the beings, the weaknesses, the strengths, what they look like, how they moved, what they ate, all the particulars about these beings. So if you encounter them, you know what to expect. So you're not captured. Know your enemy, know your friends, know everything about them.
Right. There's one particular training hologram that I remember putting the troops through was if our craft was attacked. And on this one, there was an explosion on the side. It's filling up with smoke. There's flames. And I remember just standing there, just watching everybody go into action as what they were trained. and because I was assessing them. And I remember when the memory had first come through, it's like, why am I just standing there? Why am I not active? Why am I not participating? Well, it came back that it was a holographic training and I was assessing their abilities. But it was so real. It was so real. You could not tell if it was fake or not.
Yeah, and I was there with you looking at that, and I asked you, why are you just standing there? What's the purpose of that? What's the meaning of that? And you're like, training exercise. I think this is training the cadets, training the new recruits. And you would say it in little phrases, bits by bits, that later became into full-on sentences. As we got deeper into understanding how all of this stuff worked, you were just talking in sentences.
Right.
Instead of phrases. So it evolved. It really evolved. And once you got over the expectation of having it all at once, it
just
really
let
flowed.
It freely just come out, whichever way it was going to come out.
It really flowed, and you got all of it, though. That's the thing. We got 600 and something pages for a book that you can write now, just the way it is. And
then the hologram that helped to train the troops with flight navigation, learning how to fly, and because it would simulate the same as being on their own individual crafts.
It looked very real to us when we were looking at it. It's like, okay, well, is this a real flight happening? Like, was this really happening, or was it a simulation?
Right.
So we were trying to even get the difference between the simulated stuff that was training protocols that were just like training procedures that happened, exercises, or was this really like happening from your experiences? Because both are experiences.
Right, and they are so real. That hologram is just, wow, it's amazing.
And then we did ask, are these implanted memories? Are these real memories?
Right.
We would ask those, we would double check, we would go back to the memories and look at some of them, what we weren't sure about. We would go back and do diligence to check. And
because there was also like in the hologram, when you can also insert a memory in. I remember they made me feel like I had a whole entire lifetime, but yet I never left that chair, I never left that room, and it was only a couple of minutes. And I remember in this life, I had to question if I was still in that room or not. I didn't know if I was still in that room or if I was here. And those holograms and then those implanted memories are so real. Yeah,
and they often use that for training.
Definitely.
To make sure you don't give up the secrets, to make sure you don't say what you're not supposed to say, that you know how to protect yourself and fight, and also mental mind control abilities.
Right. What are you going to do at your extreme limit? And do you make the mustard, make the cut, or?
Yeah, they even made you practice how to manipulate other people's minds.
Oh, yeah.
On those covert missions, because we saw like you really being able to show a person, go away, walk away now. And
I remember going into that one building and the security guard, and I made them believe and think that they'd always seen me. I'd always been there, and I was their friend. They were just happy to see me and just walked right by.
Yeah, you can come in any of the 3-letter or 4-letter agencies, and you can make yourself seem like you were part of the team, like you were inserted there to find spies, to investigate, to make sure they were doing what they're supposed to, these agencies. And you could just like, I'm your new best friend, I'm your new teammate, I fit in.
Right. And if I left, I can make them just forget I was even there. There's, how you just wouldn't recall something or someone.
Yeah, exactly. You have that ability to just seamlessly blend in, come in, do the work, and leave. Like nobody ever knows you came or you're gone. You just erase those memories and they have no idea.
And that's why on these Earth missions, because of the abilities, I was also kind of shared between different
agencies.
Yeah. Like, what should I call it?
You were loaned out. What came in
Right.
into hypnosis, you were literally loaned out on different missions in these
Yeah.
agencies to see what was going on with them and to ferret out the spies and the traitors.
Yeah. It seemed to, though, kind of follow me along, though. Even here on Earth, it was all off planet as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I was loyal to what I did. And like I had said, they couldn't break me out there, but they can come here and then find my weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And so dealing with that.
Because they don't help you down here. The SSP programs don't help with anything. Once you're back, you're on your own. Do with it what you will or you wish.
But then you question, am I really back?
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, I have all my layers going on. I'm still working. I'm still out there doing what I'm doing. This is just another version of me, just like that's another version of me.
Mm-hmm. But yet you're still the same personality.
Right.
You've
That's
kept
all me and this is me,
Yeah. And you survived and you've kept all the bits and pieces together no matter what has been thrown at you. Like, I know where we've started and where you are now because I saw all the personal things happening behind the scenes,
Right.
which we cannot discuss because that's private, but you've come so far. Courage, strength, and perseverance, sheer will and determination. That's who you are as a soul. You're strong. You've gone to conferences, you've listened to the chats of SSP experiencers, you've traveled, and it's hard to travel right now, but you've done it.
Yeah, I did anyways.
And you moved and you're in a new place. So you're evolving. You're so strong. I know you're strong. I always knew you were. And you are what you're meant to be.
Yeah, and I'm on a mission now with all of this. So I'm determined to keep moving forward with it.
Well, thank you for sharing your experiences and for making this such a beautiful experience for me today.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. I think we've covered a lot. I think we've covered many different topics, and it gives folks kind of like a catalog, if you will.
Little snippets.
Exactly. And it starts with snippets that become broader memories, broader experiences. And then you have your timeline, and then you can write a book if you want, or you can talk about it. You could do whatever you want with these memories.
I plan to do all of it.
Awesome. And I'm glad you are, because you're so good at it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you have a great day and continue to explore your experiences.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.